Wow, time really flies, doesn't it? Has it really been 2 years since Theatrhythm Final Fantasy? I feel like there's only been like 3 or so videos since then, right? Well, believe it, we're back already. 2 years later, and 4 times the songs. Wow, you managed to fit it all in one cart this time, huh? This game came out so fast and outshined the original so much, it is just considered a replacement, making the original obsolete. But in my time playing Curtain Call, I was surprised to discover not only does it add a lot and change a lot, it removes some things. We're gonna talk about all of it this time. Also, I found a cheap copy of it online. That was like the collector's edition that came with a little soundtrack of 5 remixes from the series. Interesting picks. I guess you'll be hearing this in the background throughout this video. Keep an ear out. So let's get right into it, man. It's very simple. It's a rhythm game. We already talked about the first version, so there's little more to say. But let's say as much as we can. Starting with what's not changed. The story is the exact same as the original. Chaos Cosmos. Restore balance to the rhythm crystal. When you reach a certain amount of rhythmia, you fight chaos, and then the credits roll. Same thing, right to the T. You still got field songs, battle songs, and event songs that all work the same way. The gameplay of tapping the dots, yeah, they didn't really change it. Surprise, surprise. You still have the same level up system, same abilities that you can use with your characters, and you still collect cards. But this time, the cards actually do something. Let's talk about what's changed. You can now use your extra duplicate cards to give additional stat boosts to your characters. Your success rate increases the more cards match from a certain series or character or whatever. Guess how many times I used this? Once. Just to see what it was, like what it was for. Because like I said in the last video, stats, they are not really relevant to this game. It's weird that there are stats. Not gonna repeat what I said in the last Theatrhythm video, but in a nutshell, the fact that it's an RPG is still not very mixed in with the rhythm gameplay super well. It's still a rhythm game first and foremost. Some smaller changes. The game does graphically look better and cleaner somehow. It's a lot easier to see what's going on. Not that it was hard before, but it's just easier now. They've also added a lot more backgrounds. I think each game represented in this has its own special background that the characters run through during the stages. That's cool. Ultimate difficulty is no longer locked behind beating expert mode first, which is very nice because sometimes I just want to jump right into the fire. You can now change the sound effect that plays when you tap a note. That's a neat little change and an excuse to have more stuff to unlock. Why not celebrate the iconic sound effects of Final Fantasy while you're at it? And a favorite change of mine, unlocking characters happens so much faster now. I unlocked my first character on the second song I played. Why did it take so long last time? You practically had to beat the game before you unlocked a single character. Probably because they were heavily padding the experience. Big change here though, you can now play with buttons. Oh, thank God. But I found out that button mode is actually not super ideal for field stages, because they still want you to drag the hold notes up and down. Doing that with a circle pad is really awkward, but luckily you can just choose however you want to do any stage. There's even a one-handed mode if you're a crazy person. Oh boy, do I love when I have a specific complaint that gets fixed in the next game. Remember the Stoic bonus? It was a large score bonus that was given to the player when you beat the stage without equipping any items or abilities, right? It's just going in with no help. It used to be the only way to get a perfect score on a stage, which meant that I wanted to go through the whole game without any equipment or abilities, just on the off chance that I might get a perfect score, because it's the only way. That killed the RPG side of the game because I was ignoring it the whole time. But now, instead of getting this Stoic bonus, if you do unequip everything, you just get like plus 20 rhythmia at the end, which is like useless. Which means you can get a perfect score in the stage with your abilities equipped now. So that's fixed. You can actually use abilities now if you're a hardcore rhythm fan. You can still see both sides. And those are the little tweaks that I thought were all good. Let's talk about the actual additions to this game. What's brand new? For starters, round of applause, it's the first big crossover thing that features Final Fantasy XIV. And along with it, the only 14 playable character. The representative they used, Y'shtola. She was chosen to be the 14 character. They didn't just throw in like nameless protagonist guy. They didn't throw in Sid or anybody. It's Y'shtola. Why? I don't know. Cat Girl stands stay winning. My favorite addition has to be the inclusion of spin-off games which were criminally overlooked last time. We got 10-2, 13-2, Lightning Returns, Crystal Chronicles, Crisis Core, Tactics, Advent Children even, Dissidia Duodecim, Chocobo's Dungeon, I told you that was a Final Fantasy game, Type 0, and finally, Mystic Quest. Wow, that's a deep cut, I like that. Remember that? That was a long time ago. They've added a versus mode and you don't even need a friend to play with. They got computer characters too. There's a new field stage variant, an airship stage where notes come flying in from small to big, and it probably would have looked cool on 3D if I wasn't playing on a new 2DS XL. They've also added a new twist to the gameplay. Occasionally, boss monsters will have a move that twist the arrow notes in a circle, and you have to swipe in whatever direction it ends up by the time it hits the line, which is like brutal. That destroyed me. And the last thing they added was the biggest one, the main incentive to buy Curtain Call, Quest Mode. So throughout the game, you collect these little maps that'll take you through a series of stages. These maps feature various forks in the road where you can choose the riskier one or the safer one where you get more or less rewards. There's an XP multiplier that increases the farther you go and the more stages you beat, and there's a big old final boss at the end. You can also cut the line with an airship, and this is where the airship stages come into play. And you can pay for a ticket via play coins. Remember play coins? They told me I was crazy for investing in play coin. The maps are organized by length and difficulty, so you'll need to make sure you're either high level or just very good at rhythm games to tackle the bigger ones. You can also trade these maps from other players through Street Pass, but that ship has kind of sailed. Now, if this mode doesn't sound like all that crazy, it's because it's not. To be honest, I was pretty disappointed with what this ended up being. It's like a procedurally generated, randomized handful of stages. You just have to play in a row. You can occasionally choose a fork in the road, but you're playing music stages either way. Skipping to the end with an airship, like, what does that do? Not much. You just get to the final boss, which it's good if you want to like farm whatever the final boss rewards you with, but again, it's like, why are you playing this game? To play the music. So you can do it on the map, or you can just go in the playlist mode, which is the main mode, and just choose a song and go. I had this idea in my head when I heard about Quest mode that it was going to be like a campaign. It's not. It's more or less the same as the Dark Notes mode in the first game, which I didn't even really mention because it didn't impress me there either. This is where I started to be surprised by Curtain Call, because the original Theatrhythm actually does kind of have a campaign in a main quest mode, which is removed in this. The main quest mode, if you didn't play the first Theatrhythm, it takes you through each game. Like, you start with Final Fantasy 1, you play the opening, you play a battle, a field song, and a boss or something, and then you play the ending credits song, and it's like, yo, you get a little quick run of Final Fantasy 1, and then you move on to 2 through 13. And that's like the main campaign. It's not anything super special, but it was kind of a game. It was a structure to a start to a finish. It was something. So yeah, kind of surprised that the original Theatrhythm does get credit for something that Curtain Call doesn't have. Maybe there was a justification for reviewing that game separately. Speaking of things that are gone, what else did they remove? That silly tap to the beat minigame that they threw into the main quest mode is no longer a thing. I don't really miss it. You know, you tap to the crystal. The big skip button, I remember being funny because it was just right there. It was basically the developers telling you there's no reason to do this, you could just skip it. That's funny. Now it's just gone. Okay, whatever. But a big hit, the original event music stages are not present. There are only 11 in this game, but they're all new. That's cool. The original Theatrhythm had 13 though, one for each mainline game. But the only mainline game that has an event stage in this one is A Realm Reborn, because it, didn't get the chance last time. That's actually pretty sad. There's 3 types of stages in this game, and one of the types only has 11 stages. Less than the first game? Like, what reason did they have to not just port all those over? I don't know. Like, you can still play Aerith's theme, but it's a normal stage, as opposed to the event stage it was in the first game. What's with all the cuts? This is getting weird. However, one of the event songs you unlock is an original medley celebrating all of the mainline games, which scores a lot of points for me. It's an original thing that you can play. Except that Final Fantasy 5 and 6 are essentially completely overlooked, because they gotta skip ahead to get to 7. And they spend a lot of time on 7, and they also skip 8 and 9, and 11. Okay, so it wasn't that impressive, actually. Well, that's the game. I don't know, maybe DLC can make up for it. Almost all of the games included in Curtain Call have additional DLC songs you can buy, but there is one Final Fantasy title that was added through DLC via one song called Last Order from Last Order Final Fantasy VII. Now that's a deep cut. That didn't even get its own REFFOID video, it was tacked on. The rest of the DLC went to guest series, including select tracks from Saga, one of which is technically from Final Fantasy Legend 2, so you can count that. Also the Mana series, one of which is technically from Final Fantasy Adventure, so you can count that too. Chrono Trigger, I told ya it counted. And Bravely Default, which doesn't bring back any tracks from 4 Heroes of Light, but at least it's still kind of related. Then the Final Fantasy relation ends with guest tracks from Live Alive, Xenogears, The World Ends With You, and Nier. It's cool that these games get a chance to kind of shine in the light, because they're never going to get their own dedicated rhythm games, right? So that's nice. I absolutely would have bought every Chrono Trigger track. Guest tracks, that's the perfect kind of thing to have as DLC for this game, because nobody expected it to be in the base game. But when there's a large chunk of the DLC dedicated to songs that you might have expected to be in the base game, that's where it becomes a problem. Like Advent Children, for example. There are 5 songs from Advent Children in the game. There are 4 DLC songs. There are some 10 and 10-2 tracks I was excited to see, now locked behind DLC. Songs like Good King Moggle Mog from 14 would have been really fun, but no, it's DLC. So is the final boss of 13, the iconic opening Latin chorus from 8, even opening bombing mission from 7. Literally one of the most iconic tracks in the entire series. Opening bombing mission. You're not gonna put opening bombing mission. There are now playable characters locked behind DLC. Just 7 of them, but they're all main characters from their respective games, like Auron. Why do you gotta pay extra for Auron? So that's $7 right there. But if you want to get every single track from the DLC, if you want everything, it's gonna cost you 100 smackaroos. But the eShop is dead, so no worries. So, in conclusion, these aren't hitting for me, man. These are not giving me what I want. I love rhythm games. I don't have a ton under my belt, but I enjoy the gameplay style. These games just aren't delivering enough to keep me engaged. I expected the first game to be bare bones, and this one did fix the biggest problem that game had, which was the lack of songs and the lack of button control. But when I heard this had a quest mode, I thought it was gonna be something, and not just another way to play randomly selected tracks. It's the same process of randomly generated order of songs that you play through, with the same characters that, I'm just gonna say it, look like palette-swapped Funko Pops. I wish this was more of a celebration of the franchise. The first game actually had the right idea by taking it through game by game. That lack of main quest in this game, I think, justifies the existence of the first one still. It's not completely obsolete. And I know the elevator pitch of this game is plain and simple. You can play Final Fantasy songs, and you could now play over 200 of them. So much more than the original had. That's all maybe I should have expected this to be. But really, am I wrong for expecting a game to be built around those songs instead of just boom, it's a playlist, play the songs, and you're done pretty much whenever you feel like it? That's not a game. But I've been spoiled by Kingdom Hearts Memory of Melody, a game that is basically everything I want it to be. Melody of Memory takes you through the series of Kingdom Hearts step by step and gives you almost every song you can want. It even tells a little story, which is the icing on the cake, and there's no DLC because it's all already there. I feel like even though there's over 200 songs, the reason for being included is less about which tracks are the most popular or good ones, and more about we need to fill a quota for field songs and a quota for battle songs, and now we need to fill a quota for airship songs, so the airship theme of every single game has to be included. That's 14 slots that could have gone to some cool songs that people actually wanted to hear. Get your priorities straight. The RPG elements that's supposed to be the part that makes it unique, it doesn't influence the game in any meaningful way, and I practically ignored it the whole time, just like I did the first time. I might be acting a little negative, maybe a little too negative. This game provides over 200 playable Final Fantasy songs, period. If that's all you want, if you just wanna be able to play them all, you got it. But for me, I just kinda need a structure, I need a goal. I need something to work towards. These games just put no effort into really providing me that. But maybe third time's the charm. Perhaps I'll get my wish next time. Someday, when we tackle the latest entry that came out in 2023, Theatrhythm Final Bar Line, which doesn't have Final Fantasy in the title, which is weird, but it still counts. We still have 9 more years of games to go through before we get there, though. Now that may sound long, but I'm telling you, we're in a new era where Square is releasing a lot less of these random spin-offs that are cheap and quick. Because next time on REFFOID, we will actually be covering the final 3DS game. And then from that point on, PS4 and the occasional weird phone game. And that's all we have. So, next time on REFFOID, join me right back here as we explore a brand new era of Final Fantasy.